Back in 2014, when I was still just experimenting with YouTube, I made a video about Paprika. It's since been delisted and deleted for several reasons. Like any writer, going back to my old work is painful and embarrassing. It's a super dry review in the style born out of consumer advice, bouncing between broad topics such as the premise, pacing, direction, and so on. While I very much enjoyed the film 6 years ago and still do, the arguments for such have changed. Some may remain similar at their cores, but have taken on new hues. I was a different person then, and the persona I had online was too. More abrasive and prone to fall into all sorts of tired points of view. I'm different now, and so is the sliver of me that I call Words Maybe, which wasn't even the channel's name back then. In an earlier version of this script, I was tempted to call this a revisit to Paprika, but that doesn't feel entirely accurate, because when I watched that video, that's not me. I've only just viewed Paprika for the first time, so how could I possibly call it a revisiting? All of this is what Satoshi Kon's last film is all about. In the world of Paprika, a new piece of experimental technology, the DC Mini, allows for folks to connect with others within the world of dreams, seeing different personas that we create or have tucked away. There's a fair bit of similarities to the internet in this regard on the subject of selfhood. Given the film's 2006 release, where the internet was on the verge of this social media boom, it's fascinating. Throw in the fact of how the incoming initial outing of the iPhone was about to revolutionize our relationship with computers, and Paprika becomes a very forward-thinking film. Dr. Chiba is someone who has an online and offline personality. At work, she's stern and down to business. Looking at her character design,
Atsuko, she's attractive, but at the same time very plain. Tan and black dress suit, with brown pantyhose and black heels. In the crowds of Tokyo, she'd blend right in.
Paprika, however, is much the opposite. In 2020, this notion is nothing new. Heck, back in 2008 when I joined my first forum and adopted my very first online persona, I very consciously made that divide. Nevertheless, as the internet continues to evolve, the question of how much of us we put online becomes more complicated. On August 15th, I published The Legend of Korra is Incredible, a sort of cathartic spewing of why I love a show so many don't and how some of their criticisms feel unfair. Views rolled in at a fairly normal pace for my channel, 500-ish in about 5 days. Then all of a sudden the YouTube algorithms smiled upon me, and within a week it hit 10K and continued to climb. Now, these numbers are still small in the grand scheme of things, but compared to my usual analytics, this was exhilarating. I caught a break, not a life-changing one, but at least a step in the right direction. But it was also unnerving. My voice and my thoughts were rapidly out there for tens of thousands of people to consume, pore over, and criticize. Some of the criticisms are quite valid. YouTube comments are a wild mixture though. Some are not a response to my video, just some sort of stating of their own opinion. A few clearly hold views I find reprehensible. Even if I could rationalize that no one who watches that video has any intention of digging into my online presence past what I have out in the open, the itching thought continues to bother me. I was predisposed to this already, having deleted my Facebook years ago, but knowing how insecure our information is online, I decided to shave down some of that presence further than I already have. Once something is on the internet, no matter what, you're never entirely in control of it. And it doesn't even matter if it's a perfectly pleasant thing. That loss of control is weird. Part of the reason a lot of my older work is no longer available is because my face is visible. For me, that crosses the line of comfortability I have with the internet these days. There are aspects of me I don't care to have seen, not because I find them shameful, but rather I think we all could serve to have clearer lines drawn. That sometimes you just need to log off because the alternative can be maddening. In the world of Paprika, those who dive too long and too deep within the dreams are driven mad by this connection, something the company behind the DC Mini are well aware of yet are very torn on. On one end is the main mind behind the invention, Dr. Takada, a child in a large man's body whose motivations are also quite childish. He just thought it would be cool to see into a friend's dream. Meanwhile, the chairman of the company stands in opposition to this creative freedom, considering the lack of ethics that so often fuels technological advancement in places like Silicon Valley. This fear is quite reasonable. However, despite the many issues and kinks that still need working out with the DC Mini, tangible benefits have already proven to be quite impressive. For example, its uses as a mental health tool is undeniable. Detective Konakawa is a direct recipient of this. Like the DC Mini, the internet is an unrefined and dangerous piece of technology, but its benefits outweigh those concerns. As a source of knowledge and a tool of connections, opportunities that didn't exist prior to the World Wide Web's flourishing, it's fantastic, having since crafted avenues for betterment to those who would not have had such otherwise. The benefits of the internet obviously are quite lengthy. I struggle to imagine who I would be if I hadn't grown up in the era where it became so commonplace. Words maybe, however you view the persona, would not exist. But I'm happy it does, because as a more open version of me, I'm typically not in person. Though as I become more open here, so too does my offline self. I've talked about this in my last several videos about how I often prefer messy media, and I think a lot of that has to do with how such offers room for different readings. That the details around the periphery are unfinished or unpolished, just enough that the viewer can attach their own perspective to how they interpret such. This isn't to say I don't enjoy straightforward media, or that any piece has only one correct reading. It's just that I find that which we often critique with parroted phrases such as, "This is bad storytelling," "This is an unfinished arc," "This is a plot hole," or "lore retcon," to be less conducive to interesting conversations, which is something Kon did fantastically throughout his career, though the craft of his works is unquestionably there. Someone could rightfully come away from Paprika viewing it as a commentary on filmmaking. I mean, at one point it dives directly into camera techniques as Konakawa discusses his long-lost passion for movies. There is also the conversation that melds my prior point of ethical technological advancements in creative control when multiple cooks are in the kitchen, something obviously a concern in filmmaking too. This is what I love about Kon's body of work. There are obvious big takeaways. Perfect Blue is a condemnation of the idol industry in Japan, but there are layers to that discussion which can only come from individual lived experience. For example, what it truly means to be in the public eye, that I don't think anyone who has never lived such can fully understand. How that begets the existence of a parasocial relationship and what that does to your own perception of yourself, which is something I hadn't really considered until someone in that spot discussed it. When that day comes, in part, it will do so as a result of Paranoia Agent of Satoshi Kon. When I was still just experimenting with YouTube, I made a video about Paprika.
It won't be easy, but you most certainly can. Human nature is to desire happiness. So long as you aren't self-defeating, you can change your life for the better. It's strangely fitting how this ended up being Kon's final film before his death in 2010.
There's a better than good chance that at least once a year, around late August to early September, I'll keep releasing videos about Satoshi Kon. His work is a well to be endlessly drawn from, even as we grow and change. Paprika may not have the same value to me that it did when I loved it in 2014, but nevertheless, I still love it, despite how my relationship with it has changed, despite how I've changed. Hey there, so a shorter video that took a little longer than I would have liked to get out, obviously a month almost between videos here. And that's partly because I moved halfway across the country recently, and also had an earache, which I would really not suggest ever having because it's pretty unpleasant and makes editing videos and listening to the audio you record really inconvenient when you can't hear out of one of your ears, so yeah. But anyway, thank you for watching as always. That Korra video continues to do quite well, and the channel is growing a bit. Not a ton, but a little bit. And for the new people out there, maybe you want to support this channel, and you can do so by donating to my Patreon. $1 a month gets your name here in the credits, as well as access to bonus posts, which are just like me talking about what anime backlog I've been catching up on, or maybe a review of something that I've watched here or there, or like some thoughts about a video game I'm playing, just some odds and ends that don't make it into videos. For $5 a month, you get access to all that, plus behind the scenes sort of thoughts on my video making process. So the decisions I make when I decide to choose a topic, why I decide to edit something the way I do, so on and so forth. So for those who already donate, thank you so much. It is always greatly appreciated. So again, thank you.